has taken his position there in the House. The pages just brought in, David and Tim Barton are with me, and you just saw the pages bring in all of the electoral votes from all across the nation. There's Nancy Pelosi with the vice president as well. Tim Fox is outside of the Capitol building right now. Tim, real quick to you, what's there? I hear all the crowd is going to come toward you from the mall.
Are allowed to go vote without so much. The Capitol, there was a steady stream of people walking up Constitution Avenue towards this building right here. The folks that have been at the speech down there are going to head up this way after that speech is over. So there's a sense here, you can feel it building. Interesting enough, right next to where I'm sitting here, there's a prayer service going on. They've been saying prayers, singing worship songs. So there's still prayer going on. I know a lot of people that are watching us are praying as well.
Okay, thanks, Tim. John Graves is also with us, and Rick Green, I believe. Tell me where we're going to. John Graves, are you with us?
So you can hear me or see me?
I hear you. They just gavelled, and let me cut back in. They're just gavelled here a second ago. They're going through some of the paperwork. We saw Chuck Schumer walk in.
Yeah, what you've got is there in the House of Representatives Hall now, that's the largest chamber. And so the House of Representatives chamber is the one where they have the State of the Union address. That is the one where you have the most people. So right now it is highly empty with seats. There's so many seats, it's amazing. They've gavelled it in, and you do have the head of the Senate, which is Vice President, and you have Pelosi. And so they'll be conducting the meeting. It is generally the President of the Senate who will do the meeting in the House chambers. So we'll see if that protocol falls, or if Mike is going to speak when he's in the Senate.
Some of the parliamentarians are there right now.
That's right. They're going through the paper. And these are all scripts, too, that are going to be given Pelosi. They're given her by the parliamentarian. And the parliamentarian has every scenario worked out for what possibly might happen. And whatever one member introduces or suggests, if they go to a debate or whatever, there'll be a script given her, and she'll read that script. So the parliamentarians spend an amazing amount of time going through every possible contingency. So you're seeing the staff there on the screen, but this is in the House chamber.
Here's Nancy Pelosi just asked for the House to come to order, and let's go now to the joint session of Congress.
That each side, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, each have 11 members allowed to be present on the floor. Others may be in the gallery. This is at the guidance of the officiating attending physician and the sergeants at arms. The gentleman on the Republican side of the aisle will please observe the social distancing and agree to what we have 11 members on each side, so that we can responsibilities to this chamber, to this responsibility, and to this House of Representatives. Please exit the floor if you do not have an assigned role from your leadership. You can share with your staff if you want to have a few more, but you cannot.
Giving instructions there about only 11 members from each side, Republican or Democrat. Now, that was not the case when they were voting on her for Speaker of the House, but today that will be the case. So they're getting the rules in order that what they're going to do here. We're listening.
She's actually asking Republican members to leave because there were more than 11 Republicans in there, which makes a lot of sense if you're objecting.
And here's the Vice President.
That's right.
He's the President of the Senate now.
Madam Speaker and members of Congress, pursuant to the Constitution and the laws of the United States, the Senate and House of Representatives are meeting in joint session to verify the certificates and count the votes of the electors of the several states for President and Vice President of the United States. After ascertainment has been had that the certificates are authentic and correct in form, the tellers will count and make a list of the votes cast by the electors of the several states. The tellers on the part of the two houses have taken their places at the clerk's desk. Without objection, the tellers will dispense with the reading of the formal portions of the certificates. After ascertaining that the certificates are regular in form and authentic, the tellers will announce the votes cast by the electors for each state, beginning with Alabama, which the parliamentarians advise me is the only certificate of vote from that state and purports to be a return from the state, and that has annexed to it a certificate from an authority of that state purporting to appoint or ascertain electors. Mr. Blunt. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Point of order, parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Vice President. In order to follow with the Speaker's instructions that only a limited number of people be on the floor, may I ask how one would make an objection or make a parliamentary inquiry in the future if you're not on the floor but in the gallery?
Just under section 18, just read the first one.
Under Section 18 of Title III of the United States Code, debate is not permitted in the joint session.
You want to hand that to her?
Gentleman's recognized.
I'm not attempting to debate. I'm trying to find out how a parliamentary inquiry or a parliamentary point of order would be made in following with the Speaker's request that most of us not be on the floor. How do you make one of those points of order when you don't know what's going to happen later?
Respectfully, the gentleman's parliamentary inquiry constitutes debate, which is not permitted in the joint session under Section 18 of Title III United States Code. With that, Mr. Blunt.
Okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. We're watching that's a parliamentarian there with the vice president that's now handing him the rules of the joint session according to the Constitution. They're not allowed to have debate in open session on this. And the question was asked is how do we, if you're not on the floor, how do you make a point of inquiry or a question? So that's being handled now.
You've got 140 plus members to say they want to raise objections. You can only have 11 on the floor. What if the guys that raise objections are the ones up in the balcony? How do you get the objection down there?
Rick Green, if you're with us, constitutional coach, real quick, your thoughts on what we're seeing so far right now?
Well, I'm a little concerned that Pence is already basically turning it over to rules that would not allow for that debate. I had hoped that he, as the presiding officer, would allow for debate in the joint session. There's no constitutional instruction on that, whether there would be debate or not. The 1887 law does have instruction on that, so it looks like he may be
Order in the
leaning
chamber.
towards how the 1887 law lays out.
Continue.
The certificate of the electoral vote of
And
the
so
state
let's
of
go back
Alabama
now
seems
to,
to be
the
regular,
joint session.
informed, and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida received 9 votes for president, and Michael R. Pence of the state of Indiana received 9 votes for vice president.
Are there any objections to counting the certificate of vote of the state of Alabama that the teller has verified appears to be regular, in form, and authentic? Hearing none. This certificate from Alaska, the parliamentarians advise me, is the only certificate of vote from that state that purports to be a return from the state, and that has annexed to it a certificate from an authority of the state purporting to appoint and ascertain electors.
Mr. President, the certificate of the electoral vote of the state of Alaska seems to be regular in form and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida received 3 votes for president, and Michael R. Pence of the state of Indiana received 3 votes for vice president.
Are there any objections to counting the certificate of vote of the state of Alaska that the teller has verified appears to be regular in form and authentic?
If not, there are none. The certificate.
Hearing none, this certificate from
So
Arizona.
we've just heard Alaska, we've just heard Alabama, Arizona, I believe, should be next. This should be where it gets interesting because this is a dueling slate of electors. The ones before have not had dueling slate of electors. So we'll find out what the Vice President does right now with the next state. Each state goes, all 50 states will be presented like this.
Mr.
And
President,
so here we go, the Vice President.
the certificate of the electoral vote of the state of Arizona seems to be regular in form and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Joseph R. Biden Jr. of the state of Delaware received 11 votes for president, and Kamala D. Harris of the state of California received 11 votes for vice president.
Are there any objections to counting the certificate of vote of the state of Arizona that the teller has verified appears to be regular in form and authentic?
President, I, Paul Gosar from Arizona.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I rise up for myself and 60 of my colleagues to object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, it is.
It is. I need the next page.
They didn't do social distancing, they stayed.
An objection presented in writing and signed by both a representative and a senator complies with the law, Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the United States Code. The clerk will report the objection.
Objection to counting the electoral votes of the state of Arizona. We, a member of the House of Representatives and a United States Senator, object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Arizona on the ground that they were not, under all of the known circumstances, regularly given.
Are there further objections to the certificates from the state of Arizona? The chair hears none. The two houses will withdraw from joint session. Each house will deliberate separately on the pending objection and report its decision back to the joint session. The Senate will now retire to its chamber.
Okay, so there it is. We got through Alabama, we got through Alaska, and there was no challenge there. Senator Klobuchar read the Arizona results, which went for Biden and Kamala Harris. There was an objection from a Arizona congressman, and then Senator Ted Cruz also objected with him. So you had a member of Congress and a senator both object. At that point, it was in writing, and you heard the applause. I did notice, David Barton, that the Republicans, there was more than 11 of them.
Yeah, the Republicans, they ignored the social distancing guidelines that Ms. Pelosi has set forward. And you saw on the Republican side of the chamber, which from the speaker's side would be the left side of the screen, there were a lot of people in there. Probably most of them were there. I think the first surprise was that there wasn't 140 people we heard would object. It was 60. And so what we've heard is 60, which is plenty enough.
Well, that's to Arizona.
Correct. It could also be that for other states,
that's true.
Pennsylvania, Georgia, there could be more congressmen and senators that will be objecting to some of these states based on what we've seen with different fraudulent activity in different states. So certainly as we go forward, which now it could be a 2-hour process before we see the next
minimum 2-hour process. On the screen there, what you're seeing is that's the statuary hall, and the senators are now leaving the joint session and walking across the Capitol to the Senate, where they will begin debate. I want to go to Tim Fox real quickly. Tim, I don't know if you've heard what's been happening. We went through to our third state, Arizona, and there was an objection. And Senator Cruz rose an objection with the representative from Arizona. Now, what was the reaction there? Did people there know it?
Well, they do. Actually, it's being piped out here to this group to the left of me that I was telling you about. When that objection came up, there was a loud cheer that came up with this crowd here. And I'll tell you, the crowd is continuing to grow out here because the crowd that was down at the Ellipse is on their way up here. So I suspect by the time we get done with this, probably in the next couple of hours, there'll be a whole lot more people out here. But yeah, there was a great round of applause out here when that objection was brought up.
We saw the end of the president's speech. You can see right now, if they'll put that on the screen, you can see the motorcade. The president is leaving that area. Don't know if he's headed up to the Capitol or not, but the motorcade there is leaving where he spoke. As it was. Okay, let's go back now. I want to John Graves. Are you with us, John?
I am.
Your thoughts on what we're seeing right now?
Well, it's a little bit down of the two different paths. One of them was the parliamentarian path. One of them was what I was pleading for, which was a constitutional before you even get there. He's very much following that path. So we went through the first Alabama, Alaska, and we got to Arizona. We'll go through several more states and get to Georgia. Some will only object to some. I still am concerned because we don't have sufficient votes in the Senate or in the House to do that. So a lot of this is just theater, and a lot of this is just continuing to put more pressure, but there's not sufficient votes to do something in this setting. So to me, I am still hopeful that he can do something straight from Article 2 in the Constitution. And if they come back and say, well, we're not going to hear the objection, which is what you expect given the laydown of the votes in both chambers, that he says, well, there's a dispute, they won't hear the objection, but I'm not going to certify them. That's the only path I really see practically, constitutionally, for this to happen.
Rick, I want to bring you in on this, and I want to keep the viewers informed. We do have feeds coming from the House and the Senate, so we'll be able to cut in and out of those as well. Rick, your thoughts on what we're seeing with the drama so far?
Yeah, I agree with John. So far, the vice president has chosen the path of following the 1887 law to the T. At this point, the only inflection point left, the real decision making, will be when these two chambers come back together and report on whatever they decided. And John's right. I mean, all likelihood is that they will agree to accept Arizona, and at that point, we'll find out if Mike Pence is going to overrule them as the presiding officer. And I will note the only thing that seemed unique to me so far was when he announced what they were about to do, he did use the word verify, not just open and count. So that could turn out to be important at the end of the day when they come back together. And then again, it could just be additional language, and they're just going to rubber stamp it when it comes back in. But it's really going to be up to Pence when they gather. And I don't know that we would know for sure based on Arizona, because Arizona is not one of the states that has the clear violation of law and the violation of Article 1, Section 4 with regard to the legislatures deciding how the elections will take place. Arizona is just one where they're claiming fraud. When you get to Georgia, that's the one where we're going to find out if they're going to uphold the rule of law in the Constitution and not accept electors that were cast based on an illegal and unconstitutional voting.
Difference between what you're saying in Georgia and Arizona, the difference between fraud and what happened with the Constitution. Explain that real quickly, please.
Well, what Mark Levin and I and John and others have said ever since November 3rd is that the four states really at play here are Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those are the four that had violations of the Constitution. The Constitution only allows for the legislature to decide how elections are going to take place. The founders were very clear about that. You can go back and read the minutes of the debates, and they did not want to empower governors. They did not want to empower even Congress to decide how the election would take place, except in minor situations. They empowered the state legislatures. And in these four states, you had either a governor or a secretary of state or a local official override the will of the legislature and rewrite election law and create a scheme that would help their team. That is an unconstitutional system under which these electors were chosen in those four states. So the objection to those four states should be based entirely upon defending the Constitution and upholding Article 1, Section 4, time, place, and manner, and then upholding Article 2, Section 1, Paragraph 2, with regard to only the legislature deciding how the electors will be chosen. That's the difference in Arizona and these other four states.
Okay, thank you for that. We're watching, monitoring what's happening in both sessions. Nancy Pelosi is at they're gaveling this in. She first now is She's actually lecturing the,
Of the US,
you can hear her in the back. She's lecturing the people for not following COVID protocols on there. So, David, tell us what's happening in both
the
chambers.
process you're about to see is there will be 2 hours of debate. Each side will have 1 hour debate. There will be a manager for each side of the debate, Republican, Democrat. They will guide however many people they want to speak to that issue. They'll both present their case. Then they'll vote to see whether each chamber they're going to uphold the objection or whether they're going to go back and rubber stamp what the state has sent them. So over the next time, there will be a manager of debates, and you have 1 hour for each side. There may be 10 speakers on one side, 3 on the other. That's up to them how they manage it. But this is where the case will be made to those members. But as Rick and John and others have pointed out, the votes are pretty much already in. We know where they're going. Tim?
Well, and also looking at the fact that unless you can show new evidence, I don't know you're really going to sway much of anybody in the House or the Senate. And even I think for some people, if they were showed new evidence, I don't think it would matter for them. Their mind is already made up with what should be the outcome of the election. And so, I mean, kind of as John Graves pointed out, some of this could just be theater until we get to the place where there was very clear violations of the law. And that's where, as Rick pointed out, it'll be very interesting to see what Mike Pence does in this time. And certainly looking at Mike Pence, one of the things that we can tell you, having known Mike Pence for a lot of years, is he is a very honorable person. He has a lot of integrity. He is a courageous person, but he also does tend to be a rule follower in some capacity. And so unless for him there is very clear evidence, I don't see him going the Trump route of just looking to pick a fight.
And what you also see here is on the Democrat side, they believe that because of COVID, you can suspend Constitution, you can remake the laws, a governor can do that. That's something we believe on the Constitution side you can't do. It says very clearly the legislature does. So you're also seeing a debate in the philosophy of government. A big government side says officials can make all the decisions for the people. The limited government side says no, the Constitution rules and people don't get to make decisions outside the Constitution. So you're also seeing a very clear difference of constitutional interpretation here by the two sides.
Okay, so what we've got here is, let's drop in, if we could, to the House. She started with debate on both sides. This is Louisiana. Louisiana is giving their argument, and then they'll switch over. Let's listen in a little bit.
It exclusively gives that ability to the legislatures. And in fact, in most states, that's the process that was followed. But for those states that this wasn't followed, unfortunately, this is not new. We've seen over and over again more states where the Democrat Party has gone in and selectively gone around this process. That has to end, Madam Speaker. We have to follow the constitutional process.